Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 8. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Monday, Steelers Nation, as we are moving along here in the Pittsburgh Steelers 2023 preseason. Last week of training camp, players are off today. They'll be back on the field on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday before breaking camp with a weekend game against the Buffalo Bills on tap. So a lot to talk about today. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Camp's winding down. The season's getting closer. From yesterday, 4 Sundays from yesterday, right? When it comes to the first game of the season. So it'll be here kind of before we know it. And it's always good to get out of the training camp mode and more into the rest of the preseason and all like that. I know you've been grinding pretty hard out there, and even though you enjoyed training camp, I bet you're counting down the rest of these practice days as well too.
There's pros and cons to camp, but certainly some dog days this summer. When there's no Steelers games, are you a NFL Red Zone channel? I know Scott Hansen had the big tweet, as you mentioned, for Sundays left. Do you watch that when there's no Steelers game on, or are you just watching one game in particular?
I just try to focus on, like, especially if it's an AFC North team or a team that'll be on the Steelers schedule. If it's shown on television on preseason, well, unfortunately though, the last couple of games have been blacked out in my area out here because the Raiders and 49ers are at my own back door here, and I think the other late on, I guess it would have been Saturday night, was the Rams and the Chargers, right? And that one was blacked out as well. So, but I mean, normally if I'm not watching a Steelers game or watching Steelers tape and there's a preseason game on, if I have a choice, it's usually an AFC North team or a team that the Steelers will have on the schedule that the coming season. Not that you're going to learn all that much, but you can learn a little bit about the players and
sure.
Especially early game action and all like that. I don't stay glued to the TV. I just have it on.
Right. Background noise.
Watch.
All right, Dave, let's dive on in. We're going to recap the Steelers-Bucks game a bit more in depth today after we've gone through the All-22 a couple of times. Didn't have that in our Friday episode or whatever it was, Saturday episode. I was talking about the game. But let's start here with some housekeeping, kind of as we talked about during the camp episode yesterday. Just an injury report, health status of this team. A couple players not practicing yesterday for the Steelers. That included Trey Norwood, Keanu Benton, Nick Witkowski, Duke Dawson, Cam Hayward, and Larry Ogunjobi. Reportedly, Ogunjobi's foot was in a boot, and so we'll have to see how serious that is. It could be nothing. It could be something. We'll keep an eye on it throughout the week at camp. Cam Hayward is sick, per Mike Tomlin. I think Benton's ankle injury is not that serious. Same with Witkowski's shoulder. I think Dawson avoided a serious injury to that knee or leg. I don't know exactly how long he'll miss, but I don't think it's he's going to IR tomorrow variety. And Norwood is working his way back. Same with Keanu Neal, John Lovett, Joey Porter Jr., all three who missed the preseason opener. So overall, I would say coming out of the first game, we'll have to check on Ogunjobi, but the team is in a pretty decent health spot.
Yeah, you know that along with camp time and preseason time that there's always going to be some bumps and bruises associated with play. And I think for the most part, they have had a couple of knee injuries that have, with Trice and the most recent one, I think, with Chappelle Russell and all. Then you see what happened the other night with Duke Dawson, and you thought the worst, and maybe that's not going to end up that way. It is a little bit concerning when you got a guy like Larry Ogunjobi in a boot on the same foot that he had that issue with a couple years ago. But look, it could be anything, and I think they had a picture of him on the Steelers community community action account and all like that. He was out there, showing support, doing some stuff with different groups and all like that. So hopefully he just twisted his ankle more than anything there, and it's not a continuation of what was it, a Liz Frank issue that he had a couple of years ago. Because man, we've talked about it a few times, and I got to be honest with you. The contract that they, and I said this, back when they re-signed him, the contract that they re-signed him on, that was a little bit of a eyebrow raiser in my eyes overall. Especially because he did obviously play throughout the 2022 season, but wasn't even he said wasn't at full capacity there, and by no means was his play came close to what we saw in the 2021 season, I think, with the Raiders there. But that said, it felt a little on the rich side there. So they need this guy to be on the field and be that 2021 version of himself. And hopefully whatever this is that ails him on that right foot won't last long. He'll be able to get some steps into preseason there and then end up being that, because they do really need him to be that guy alongside Cameron Hayward. Because if he is, and Cam Hayward's Cam Hayward, and TJ Watt's TJ Watt, and Alex Highsmith continues to rise, that's going to be a very impressive front.
It's going to be one of the best in football. And so you're right. And not that the depth behind Ogunjobi is not the best. And so that's a concern there. If Benton's going to play the nose, who's going to potentially rotate in for somebody like an Ogunjobi. And that was my concern whenever they extended him. The talent's there. I've never questioned his ability. It's been a matter of consistency and health. And is that health going to get better as he gets closer to that age 30 number? And so I do want to say, when I saw him Wednesday talking with a trainer, he looked okay. He walked around fine. What does that mean? Who knows? But whenever I saw him and first reported that there was something going on with him, it seemed minor. So we'll just have to wait and see. DeMonte Casey was in a boot early in camp, and he's back now after just, 2 weeks of missing action. So hopefully that's all it is for Ogunjobi. Dave, as you mentioned, Chappelle Russell being waived injured with a knee injury suffered in that preseason opener. Pittsburgh replacing him with linebacker Forrest Rhyne, formerly of the Indianapolis Colts, believe a Villanova product. He will wear number 46, and he jumped into the team period yesterday. So that's the one transaction made on Sunday. Russell waived injured. He'll go to IR after clearing waivers, and Forrest Rhyne being signed.
Yeah, tough for a guy like Ryan to come in, especially in that inside linebacker room. But, maybe he'll get a little bit of burn on special teams and get more tape out there for himself that way. And it's sad about Russell, because I think you had said that he seemed to be having a pretty good camp overall, and was clearly seemed to be a possibility for the practice squad there. But onward they go, and they're starting to stack up a few guys on IR, even on split salaries here. And I don't think we've seen. When was Bradley waived? We're coming up on a week on that, I think, to see if they do any kind of an injury settlement on him. But if not, it looks like there's going to be who else? We got Graham on IR.
There's no settlement with Graham. We're past that window,
right,
in terms of the initial window to settle, correct?
Right. We're past the Graham issue, and we kind of figured that might be the case there. Rennell Wren's been on IR with them, and trying to think who else. Oh, Corey Trice is on IR, and then we'll have to see with Russell. So that might be 4 players. And then obviously we'll see what happens with Bradley. That only being a hamstring injury with Bradley, I kind of think he's going to get waived again from IR with like a week or 2 injury settlement or something like that. We'll see. But just goes to show you that you have to kind of budget for that kind of stuff, because injuries happen during the preseason, even to guys that probably aren't going to end up making the 53-man roster.
Bradley went to IR on August 9th, and so could there be something today on him potentially?
Yeah, I think I think it's 7 business days with the NFL when it comes to that there. So, and until we get a full 7 business days away, we'll see. That it very well could happen today on a Monday.
Okay. We'll keep you posted, certainly, if that does occur. Where do you want to go from here, Dave? Do you want to dive into the All-22? There were some comments made by Teryl Austin, Matt Canada. Do you want to go into that, or do you want to jump right into our review of this game?
Yeah, let's jump in real quick on some comments made by Matt Canada and Teryl Austin and one former NFL quarterback.
All right, we'll start with the current Steelers and Matt Canada speaking, and in typical Matt Canada fashion, not saying a whole lot to really write home about. I think the comment about Broderick Jones and the Steelers intentionally playing him about as much as possible. He had, what was it, 47 or 49 snaps offensively in this game, far more than any other Steelers on offense had, and so a lot of exposure to him, which I think is a really good thing to see his conditioning, to see his readiness. How does he look at the end of a game? Does he kind of get tired and wear down? And I really didn't see signs of that. So I think it was a good strategy to get Jones as many reps as possible, especially in this era of only 3 preseason games. It's about getting guys work a lot quicker than trying to spread things out when you had the luxury of 4, the occasional 5th game, if you were playing in the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, because look, these guys go up against each other during training camp and all, but until you get them out there on the field against other competition, especially, man, you have him in there as long as he's in there. He can see the different grades of competition, that he's going up against. Some guys that are probably going to be on an NFL roster, some guys that probably going to be on some practice squad, and then some guys that probably going to be moving some furniture, before too long. So yeah, I mean, you got a young guy like that. You want to you everything that you said. You want to see his conditioning. You want to see how he stays mentally checked into games and stuff like that. How he handles just his own assignments and understand the play calls. So yeah, I mean, I have no issue at all with playing your first round, hopefully future left tackle for as many snaps as they did.
And I think that's why you see somebody like Spencer Anderson playing 3 spots in that opener. That's a lot on the plate of a 7th round rookie, but because there's one fewer game to look at these things, you can't go, okay, first game you're going to play here, second game you're going to play there, and then of course starters are going to play more in the second and third game, which limits snap counts. So you really kind of got to put more on these guys' plate early, because there just isn't the opportunity to wait around and kind of ease these guys into the process. Whether it's Anderson moving around or a ton of snaps for Jones in his NFL debut, you kind of have to throw these guys in the deep end and see if they sink or swim.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how this position, flexibility and continues with Spencer Anderson as well too. And Canada, I mean, we'll see. You got Nate Herbig. We'll see what the issue with his shoulder is, and if it keeps him out anytime, or if he's ends up with him missing this next preseason game here. But Canada kind of hinted that, center. He answered it without answering it, which is
what did he say exactly?
Which is a classic. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Canada on him.
Because I do want to see Anderson get center reps, and the Herbig injury may open that door a bit, but he has not taken one in camp so far.
He says, I think the versatility, the more things you can do in anything in life, probably the better you are. You got to be a master at something. But I think Spencer's a guy that has some versatility with what he can do with different spots, physicality and movement and those things. So that gives him more opportunities to play. He goes on to say, he was asked specifically if Anderson might have some value as center. He says, Spencer can snap the ball. He says, I mean, obviously we're looking at it right now. I don't know. Here's what's the confusing part of what Matt Canada said. I don't know if we'll get to that or not. But again, his versatility is real. So we look at those things, the more he can do when you start getting down to those last spots. And I think those things are valuable. So we know Spencer can snap, so wouldn't want to get direct on that, but that's certainly a possibility if we get to that. So it doesn't sound like it's a high priority, but it does sound like it's something that they are interested in pursuing. So, what does that mean for the rest of the preseason? Will we get to see him any at center? My my gut wants to tell me no, that they really just want to concern themselves maybe with both tackle spots and both guard spots. And we saw him play the other night against the Buccaneers, and as pretty much right as you laid out ahead of the game. Three spots: right guard, right tackle, and left guard seems to have been what he had played primarily in training camp up until that point. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, he'd been playing more tackle than guard, but he's played everything but center in camp so far. And so he began camp at right tackle, then flipped to left, and has been kind of floated in at guard a bit more here and there. So it's been a mix, probably more tackle than guard. And in this game, we probably saw a bit more guard than tackle. But of course, they wanted to get Jones a ton of time, so that kind of opened up the opportunity for Anderson to see more reps at guard.
And I think you reported yesterday that he spent more time on the left side at left tackle and left guard during practice, right? So, correct.
Yeah.
Left, right, who's on first? And if indeed that's the case, and that continues these next couple of practices, then maybe we'll kind of see a flip of what we saw in that, because when he came in the game the other night, he went right guard, right tackle, left guard, I think was the progression there. Maybe this next game we'll see him go left guard, left tackle, right guard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it could. I really don't know how they're going to go about it. It depends a bit on the health of the group. And, Canada's comments were made before the Herbig injury. Now, I don't know if that's going to completely change the calculation. They have enough centers where they don't have to have Anderson play center. You could go Cole, Green, and McCollum. You have your 1, 2, 3 centers if you wanted to go that route, if Herbig's going to miss some time. So we'll just have to wait and see. But obviously, Anderson's hyper versatility is a good thing for him. It's going to add more value, and he's going to make a strong push here for one of these 8th, 9th offensive lineman spots. And his play has just been pretty good, too. It's not been perfect, but I mean, the quality of the tape for how much is on his plate right now for a guy shifting around a ton is, I think, above the line, as Mike Tomlin might say.
And there was that interview yesterday after practice. He comes off as a super smart kid and understanding of what his role is. And look, you go back to he played virtually all 5 spots on the offensive line, and that's obviously attractive to the Steelers. So look, I don't think you can count him out in this race right now for one of those, especially if they keep 9 in total. And kind of depending on maybe what happens with LaRaven Clark and maybe Dotson, there's you could carve out a path for him.
Sure. I mean, if you had to put him on there, you could easily find a way, and it may be him over Kendrick Green, maybe fighting for a final spot, or LaRaven Clark, as you said. So we'll see, but that's a guy certainly to watch for the rest of the summer.
Right.
Anything else from Canada? I didn't see anything else that stuck out to me, but you heard it probably better than I did.
No. I think you hit on the two things with the 2 offensive linemen, and the rest of the stuff was saying, they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish, especially with the first team offense, and, spread the ball around and yada, yada.
Defensively with Teryl Austin, I know we talked about James Pierre on the podcast yesterday. I mean, we can talk about that again. Anything else, though, from Austin that was super notable?
I just think the comments about Pierre and the comments about Mark Robinson provided a little bit more clarity what's going on inside the Steelers' head with those 2 players. But I think the clarity stops, especially with Pierre at this point of. I think it creates a question, a good question of, and it's a question obviously in his head as well too. Is Pierre the 4th cornerback on this roster, or is he the 5th corner / special teams guy? I mean, obviously, 4th cornerback comes with special teams duties as well too. I mean, that's one thing that if Pierre ends up making this roster, there's going to be an element of special teams attached to it. So I guess it becomes now is he the 4th cornerback? And talking about mostly those on the outside there, or is he the 5th? And if he's the 5th, who is the 4th?
I think Pierre is the fourth in terms of the outside corners. It's in any order: Peterson, Wallace, Porter, and then Pierre. I don't know who's ahead of him to be that fourth outside corner. I think, and I made the comment yesterday that Teryl Austin hit the nail on the head when he said, "Is Pierre just going to be a special teamer backup? Is that his ceiling? Is that who James Pierre is, or can he be someone who can actually play on defense and rotate in?" And they've done that throughout his career, through injuries and other opportunities. And I've just found him to be a really inconsistent guy. And that's basically what Austin was getting at, is he's never found that consistency. He's been up and down. And can he overcome that, or will that just be who he is?
I mean, he's probably at this point, he's never going to be a starting corner in the NFL, right? And man, you really don't want to have to get him into a game playing outside, especially if you're playing someone like the Bengals or something like that, right? But I mean, you can't deny also what he gives, what he can provide this team on special teams, specifically as a gunner. He's a high effort guy. It's just he's not a starting caliber NFL cornerback at this point. But I still feel that all this aside, and he did not have the best of games against Tampa Bay. Although that touchdown, though, I thought he was in pretty good position overall, and that was a great throw and a great catch and all like that. But I mean, the rest of the game wasn't ideal for him from a defensive perspective overall. But still, I think he's, I'm at the point that if you don't put him on the roster, who are you going to put on the roster in place of him?
Sure. I think he makes the team. Teryl
Right.
Austin probably isn't as concerned about Pierre's gunner ability. He's probably more concerned about what he can offer in that cornerback room if they lose a guy, if Wallace or somebody were to go down. And so that's probably where Austin's focus is at. On that touchdown, yeah, I think it was a fantastic throw by Baker Mayfield and an equally great catch by Trey Palmer. Could Pierre, though, have turned around and just pushed him out? Because there's no force out rule anymore. Could that have been the better approach to that? I'm sure there's some coaching point there, Austin, when it's probably directing towards James Pierre.
Maybe a little bit more, gaining a little bit, just a tad bit more depth before trying to make a play on the ball, as well. I mean, what's the talk if he gets a hand on that ball? I mean, and he just missed it. It's a game of inches, though, right? And the other team's paid to make plays as well too. So it's hard to circle that game, his play, back to that one play. You have to look at the totality of the play in that game, and overall it wasn't great. Even if you take that play out of that,
And for his career, I mean, he's made some great plays. He's had some struggles, and he's not a super young guy anymore. And so I think that's just who he is. I think he's going to be number 4 cornerback, special teamer, ride the roller coaster. That's going to be James Pierre's, I think, ultimate NFL, tagline.
All right, now there's probably going to be at least 5 corners on this 53, right?
Yes.
Maybe 6, or you're leaning towards the 5.
It could be 6. I mean, I'm leaning 5. They're going to keep 5 safeties. I'm pretty confident in. So you could go, if you go 6 corners, that's 11 DBs, which you could have done before. It's heavy though, but it's possible. But also, you're going to probably keep 7 defensive linemen. So do you go 11 DBs and 7 D linemen? And the numbers start kind of working against you. So I'm kind of still sitting at 5 and 5 right now. 5 corners, 5 safeties.
All right, and then that makes one of those corners obviously a slot guy, like either. Assuming Pierre is the 5th / special teams one, then obviously you have Peterson, you have Levi Wallace, you have Joey Porter Jr., and probably one of Chandon Sullivan or Elijah Riley, right?
Correct. And Peterson will also bump inside. So there's your second slot corner. If a Trey Norwood were to make the team, he can play slot. And so, DeMonte Casey in an emergency situation could play slot. And so there's a couple of backup slot options. So yeah, when it comes to corner, I'm pretty confident Pierre will make the 53. The slot corner to me is the really interesting discussion. Sullivan versus Riley, 2 different body types, 2 different styles, 2 different NFL resumes. Both guys, I think, having, pretty good camps overall. And so that's a battle that I'm sure will be ongoing throughout these final. I mean, we're about 2 weeks away from cutdown, so it's about 2 weeks left.
All right. And the other thing that Austin had to say was centered more about Mark Robinson and how, he's they kind of know what they have in him as a downhill guy against the run. They just got to continue to get him to progress as a guy in the passing game.
Yeah, I mean, and again, Robinson, he's going to be a rundown guy. That's going to be his calling card. He's never going to be this hyper athlete. He's going to be a great coverage linebacker, but certainly try to improve on the coverage skills a bit and recognition and route concepts and working in zone. He won't be somebody that'll ever, run with tight ends all that well out in space, but continue to grow his game, and hopefully he gets opportunities to grow, because once the season starts, I don't know how many snaps there's going to be for Robinson to get better. It's going to be a lot of scout team and backup and special teams type work. And so hopefully he can get as many reps as possible these next couple of weeks before he kind of becomes that backup to start the year.
He played 48 snaps the other night on defense and 7 on special teams. Now, I would kind of, in this second preseason game, assuming they want to play the starters a little bit more, maybe to see his defensive snaps come down a little bit in this next game, but him probably to be, obviously you can't control how many times you punt, kick off and all like that, but probably, in the teens as far, because you really probably need to find out who he is on special teams too.
Sure, you do. Absolutely.
And so I that's kind of, and once again, that assumes they want to get a little bit longer look at, some of these, the three guys ahead of him on the depth chart at inside linebacker there. I would expect maybe his defensive snaps come down just a tad bit, probably play, I don't know, about 29 to 32 snaps on defense in the second preseason game, but see him play a little bit more on special teams.
I'm hoping so. So, yeah, we'll see exactly how Pittsburgh handles their starters. Probably will play more in this game than they did in the opener, and we'll take it from there. So anything else from Austin? He did mention, tried to tamp things down a bit on the play of Benton and Herbig, talking about he's going against their stringers, a lot of backups in this game, which, yeah, to be fair, they are, but they're also rookies in their first NFL game. And so for them to do well in that debut, regardless of opponent and the strength of the opponent, I think is, obviously encouraging.
Look, them kids can't control who they play against.
Right.
So, yeah, I think he's just trying to keep, make sure they don't smell themselves too much this week.
For sure. All right, Dave, before we get
he also talked, it was Tomlin that talked about Loudermilk, right? Or yeah, was it Austin?
It was Tomlin. Well,
okay.
I know Tomlin for sure did, and talked about his growth and refinement and the maturation process, all things you would expect Tomlin to say to describe a third-year guy, but I've seen that with Loudermilk. I think he has had a nice camp. I'm just wondering exactly, his best asset and, can he still impact the passing game? And those are questions I've always had about Isaiah Loudermilk.
Right. Now, I did think overall, top to bottom, that was probably one of the better performances, especially against run. And we've talked about him, I think dating back to his later in his rookie season, they did some nice things against the run. It's always going to be, what does he provide? You know what I was thinking when I was watching, and I guess this is the part where we'll start transitioning into reviewing the All-22 and all like that. I couldn't help but think, when going back through that tape a couple times on the defensive side of the ball with Loudermilk, he would have been a much better old school early 2000s defensive end for the Steelers, were asked to really just two gap more than penetrate one gap, right? Because he does seem to hold. He understands responsibility. I think it's clear as far as, keeping the edge and making sure things get turned back into him. I think he uses his arms well more times than not when trying to against the run specifically there. And I couldn't help but think, man, if he would have played back in the early 2000s, when he wasn't, when those ends like Aaron Smith were asked to keep the linebackers clean more times than not rely so much on their pass rushing and ability to penetrate, he would have fit in well back in that scheme.
Absolutely. I mean, his best fit was 2004. I mean, the old school 3-4 defense, two gap, take on blocks. As you said, keep the linebackers, keep Farrier, keep foot free. I mean, that's the nature in which a lot of milk fits best in this more modern NFL where you got to provide a pass rush and some juice there. He's not quite the fit. But I even had questions about his run defense last year. But yeah, I thought in this preseason opener, it was a good performance overall. He's getting a ton of reps. This summer, it's a really intense and really strong battle along that D line with him and Braden Fehoko and Montrevious Adams and Norman Watts. And I know some of those are nose tackles versus defensive ends, but just those final spots in that D line room, this one I think will go down to the wire.
Yeah, he's definitely in play, especially if they keep 7 in total, I think.
Yeah, the question is just who is the odd man out? Is it Fehoko? Is it Watts? Is it Loudermilk? And well, I don't think Leal is odd man out. I still am looking for more from him. I think he had a much better game against the run than I expected, watching it live and kind of going into this game, talking about DeMarvin Leal. And so that was encouraging. I know he's a really good athlete. Is he a good pass rusher? There's a difference, and I'm still not sure where he's at as a pass rusher at this point in his career.
All right, what stuck out on the offensive side of football on the tape?
I mean, obviously the first drive, and I wrote about this, the things we didn't see last year, some of the more full field reads by Kenny Pickett, the yak opportunities, obviously, the 33-yard touchdown to George Pickens had 21 yards of yak. His longest yak reception last year was 10 yards of yak. And so he more than doubled that in his first catch of the summer. That's really encouraging to see. I think the player Broderick Jones overall was really steady for the volume of snaps that he had for a debut on the road, no less. And, I think he didn't really wear down, and I thought he was really good in stunt pickup and recognition. And so I was really pleased with how Broderick Jones looked, just the consistency of it all in that first outing.
All right. And as far as that first series specifically, and this came up yesterday in a YouTube video by former NFL quarterback JT O'Sullivan, who seems to have crushed Kenny. If memory serves me, he's crushed Kenny pretty hard, or really both Kenny and the play calling dating back to last year. And more so in this video that he just released, he had a lot of praise, I think, for Kenny in the back end of it, but he uniquely kind of started this thing off with criticizing, the Steelers coming out and running, some Hank and what was the other
spacing? It's just general spacing concepts.
Yeah, spacing concepts and all like that. And I get it. I mean, Matt Canada is an easy target at this point, but within that, I mean, and you laid this out as well. I mean, you've talked about running Hank for as long as I can remember.
Everyone runs Hank. Everyone runs Hank.
You writing on this site. I mean, it's very common, and I thought they executed it just fine overall. And I mean, and on top of that, preseason's very vanilla anyway. Why aren't you going to run simple concepts like that? I understand the criticism that Canada gets, especially going into the preseason here. But this really felt like O'Sullivan was trying to punctuate before getting into the praise of what they did well on offense and Kenny Pickett specifically in that one drive of a first preseason game. It felt like he went out of his way to get the some criticism mixed into this analysis by just taking an easy slap at some concepts used in that thing. Am I wrong? I mean, it felt unnecessary part of the video where he could have really used that time to talk a little bit more about what Kenny did well in that game.
Yeah, it felt a little overly critical for
preseason.
That's a good word. Yeah, that's a good word of the day for that.
Or like, here is your gratuitous slap of Matt Canada to really get you riled up. Now, let's look at what Kenny did.
Right. It was the low-hanging fruit. And I'm sure some of that is because what happened last year. And I'm sure whenever he watched Pittsburgh last year, he was frustrated with their passing game concepts. And so you see that to begin this year, and it just kind of the, okay, here we go again thought of it all. And I think his point was less so about the concepts Pittsburgh runs, but the frequency in which they run it. He said, yeah, everyone kind of runs Hank and spacing concepts, but Pittsburgh seems to do it more than others. And that's probably true overall, but I wouldn't use that in a first preseason game. You want to talk about that in September 10th against the 49ers? Okay, fine. You can talk about it then. But for the preseason, I'd be focusing a little less on scheme than, the actual just execution of play for the quarterback. So I thought it was probably a little over the top from O'Sullivan when he says it's 2 middle fingers to the modern passing game. Maybe a little hyperbolic for a preseason opener, but I understand the general point, and certainly you want to see more advanced concepts once these games begin to count.
And look, I to his credit, I think he did a good job of highlighting what Kenny did do in that game. You talk about the extended play early and him firing that fastball to Deontay over on the right side on the third down at that to move the chains, and then the other the rollout, to Kenny's left with, I guess, more of a kind of a levels flood concept there, and Kenny showing the patience of the over route of Deontay to run through the first area into the second area and hit him on a wide WAO, wide ass open situation there. And I thought Kenny did a fantastic job reading that. Obviously on the touchdown to George Pickens on making sure that he moved that other linebacker, held that other linebacker away from the middle of the field to make sure he's going to get an opportunity for that to come open. And even so, you got to deliver a strike there. That ball's got to be on the money to George, A, to complete it, and B, to give George a chance to have the yards after the catch. And it was. I mean, you could not have ran down there and handed that football to George Pickens, I don't think, any better in that situation. So, I mean, I appreciate JT, spending the second half of that video of highlighting what Kenny did well. It felt real. It felt like he was pandering to the Canada crowd in the first part of that. He would have been better off starting off with going into the positives of Kenny, and then on the back end of the video taking his slap at Canada, I think, personally.
Yeah, or just sidebarred and say, nice read here by Pickett, they're running Hank, and Canada runs it too much, but here's the concept, it works, and they get the first, or they get the completion to Frymouth. Regardless, I thought Canada had a couple nice calls later in that game on some of those dry follow concepts and some of the as you said, levels concepts to get some second level receivers open over the middle. So I'm not gonna judge the scheme too harshly in a preseason opener, and really not until the regular season.
I would like to see more half field stuff like that with the levels, especially with Kenny's mobility, and especially you put him in a better situation, I think, to win down the field that way, other than just to go routes,
Sure. Yeah, there needs to be more variety, and constraint plays have to be called, more effectively and smarter. And I think, being able to sequence plays was an issue with Canada last year. Hopefully with this offense being more stable, more experienced, there's going to be more growth, and that's going to open things up a bit more. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Now, look, if you get through the first 2 or 3 games, and we're talking a lot of, the only shots they're taking downfield are one-on-one on the outside, and the rest of it's spot, route type stuff or Hank or stuff like that. Well, yeah, I mean, you're going to go back right into, and especially if they're not winning, to hammering Matt Canada for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're not, if it's not good, we're going to tell you about that. I think we were hypercritical of Canada, especially early last year, and we'll take it whenever the games count and see what the tape says.
And look, I'm not defending Matt Canada here. I'm just telling you what I think O'Sullivan's time would have been better spent in a preseason analysis of the Steelers' second-year quarterback.
All right, Dave, let's get back in these all-22 and our own thoughts here on what we observed. Talked about Broderick Jones. Did you have any commentary on Broderick Jones and his debut, or did your thoughts basically align with mine?
Yeah, they do, and I think they said it best coming out of that game. There's things that you want to work on with him with hand plays. He doesn't sound like he's too overly concerned with speed rushers. Guys on the outside. I think he's going to have to learn that some of these guys on the outside are going to have counters and be able to set him up to maybe work back inside. I think the things that he might struggle with early is some guys that play almost like that who was that kid McGuire, Missouri was
Isaiah McGuire
was his kryptonite at Georgia there. I think some of those guys that with the longer arms that can get arms into his chest, that might be, and then guys that can counter back into the inside, that might be the stuff that he has to work on early in his NFL career, I think.
You're right. I mean, he can handle speed. He's a great athlete. I think he's quick out of his stance. He's able to seal the edge. Speed rushers. I mean, he's going to have trouble against some of the top speed guys, as everybody does, but that's not the primary concern with him right now. It's going to be, as you said, some of the counters, and I think just power rushes, bull rushes.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jones has to work on his hand placement, his punch. His hands can be a bit inconsistent, a bit too wide, making that good first significant contact, and just kind of being more consistent. I think with his hand usage is going to be the thing that Jones has to improve on the most right now.
Right. Just get quicker. What one of the things he kind of carries his hands a little bit low coming out?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and check. I'm not sure how Meyer teaches that, and if he wants hands up higher, if he kind of just wants it whatever's comfortable. Obviously, you don't want your hands too low so you can shoot and make that first contact. So I'd have to check out that tape a bit more in terms of his hand carriage.
As far as the rest of the offensive line went, it was, to me, it felt more. I thought Spencer Anderson did some nice things, represented himself at 3 different positions in that game. It was only one series, but it wasn't a great first possession for Chukwuma Okorafor, which I think we highlighted the other day there. As far as, it was the whole Kendrick Green thing. I don't want to go down. We bashed that poor kid enough now, man. I don't care anything about the fullback stuff's nice to talk about, especially coming out of Friday Night Lights and all like that. But none of that's going to matter unless he can, play center better. And that certainly wasn't there on tape the other night. The rest of the offensive line play after that first group overall really felt nondescript. I didn't see, I was looking for stuff like, anything to kind of get excited about moving on into the all-22 in that tape. And really the only thing that I find myself kind of looking and raising my eyebrows about, you wrote about this on a film room this morning, was I thought Dylan Cook represented himself well. And we kind of talked about that last night on the wrap-up podcast, and you highlighted a lot of that good today.
Yeah, I've talked up Cook. I think Friday Night Lights was the first time I noticed him with a couple of good reps in team as a run blocker and some of the 1v1 O-line, D-line. And I've kind of tried to focus in on him, and I've been impressed with his play both in camp and I think definitely in this game. Now, as a run blocker, needs to probably clean up his footwork a bit. He gets a bit too top-heavy, can fall off blocks, but really good athlete, great feet, former quarterback who made the transition uniquely to offensive tackle in college. He's got good hand usage, uses the snatch and trap well to knock down the arms of defenders. It's a little bit, it's going to be a little over the top, but it's a little Villanueva like in this, and doesn't have quite the size that Villanueva had, but Cook's a big guy with good feet who made a position change, and Villanueva had that snatch and trap. It was so effective. He would just throw guys into the ground that way, and Cook kind of has a baby version of that. But yeah, athleticism. It was a great reach and cutoff block that he had in the run game that I have a clip on the site of. And so, it was not perfect, but I really see practice squad material with Dylan Cook.
All right. I would agree based on that. And I think the other, and it's not hugely notable at this point. We'll see what transpires the rest of the preseason here. I think he was the only offensive lineman in the 8 different line combinations that they used Friday night. He was the only offensive lineman that played both tackle spots.
Yeah, right and left. He came in as the right tackle, finished out as the left, and he began camp as the left tackle, then moved to right and his flip flop. So I mean, there's some versatility there. Now he was a right tackle in college, and so he's probably more comfortable on the right side and played more on the right side. I'm pretty sure in this game, but he has been doing both.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, Steer, offensively? Your takeaway starting on Washington? Did you get any impressions of the big tight end in his first NFL game?
I mean, I wasn't surprised by anything that he did. Really, I had a good wash down or two as an end of the line tight end. He had that's a long way to go down for a cut block, but he on one of those kind of wash out on the other side there. But people say why make the cut there? What prevents that edge from getting into play on that cutback lane there? So
yeah, that was a Greg Bell run. That was a good run, and Washington had the backside cut on it.
Right, and that seemed like a long way for that dude to have to fall, like tripping over an oak tree there. But obviously wasn't used much in the passing game. But I mean, to me, it was just kind of as advertised with Washington there.
Yeah, I thought there was more consistency than I thought. I think there's some issues in terms of base blocking, and when he's a bit more square to the block, I think the down blocks and the angles are going to be aces for him because he's so massive and so big and long. He can wash these guys down, and did so on that Jaylen Warren run that we talked about, and I think I have a clip of on the timeline. So yeah, overall, I was happy with his performance. How many snaps did he play? Do you know what was the snap count on Darnell in his debut?
Washington had 25 snaps in that game and 5 on special teams.
Okay, and that was on the field goal team for Washington. Okay. He was the left wing, but yeah, that's a healthy number for his first game.
Let's see. Bell, I give a B-2. I mean, especially one of the biggest contributions I think he had in that game was trying to cut down that linebacker on the touchdown pass from Rudolph to Calvin Austin. It wasn't textbook. You would have liked to have seen him kind of, I think, keep that head up a little bit more and square up the rusher a little bit more. But I think he had to choose one of two on that play if memory serves me. And he took the inside guy and he cut it. He got just enough of them to give Rudolph time to get rid of that thing down the field. So once again, it wasn't textbook, and I thought he had another decent run or two in that game. So Greg Bell stuck out a little bit in that.
We were talking about memes in the group chat earlier today. Just the old meme of "it's not much, but it's honest work." Something like that. That's Greg Bell on that blitz pickup. It wasn't pretty, but it did get the job done. Gave Rudolph enough time to throw that great deep ball to Calvin Austin. I thought McFarland in pass pro was kind of shaky, which has been his game throughout his career. Obviously, never going to be his calling card. And I just got to give Jaylen Warren credit on that run that he had with a Washington down block. Look at all the cuts that Warren made. He made like 4 cuts on that play, right, left. I mean, he's just slaloming through the line basically, and just that change of ability is don't want to overlook that because there was a lot going on that play for him. That was a really good run by Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, I agree. And anytime you can get those, I mean, it's stealing enough when you get a 10-yard run. I think he's going to have a couple of true explosive runs or plays in general. Catching the ball out of the backfield and all like that. I'm going to go out on a limb and call for 4 explosive plays from him in 2023 of 20 yards or longer.
All right, I like it. One other note I had: the first snap of Nate Herbig's Pittsburgh career, gap, pulling him. I know you had to love to see the pulling guard there. And so will we see some more gap scheme this year, maybe with some more athletic guards and say Malu, and obviously Daniel's comfortable in the system in year number 2 for him?
It wouldn't hurt my feelings. I love seeing that stuff for sure.
And I thought, say Malu, new guy to this system, didn't seem to have the growing pains that this O-line had a year ago, and so I'm sure that there's better teachers now, and Daniels and Cole, Dotson, that can teach about the Meyer system as opposed to everybody learning it at the same time and going through their own struggles. I thought Daniels looked night and day from last summer as he's gotten much more comfortable with the more aggressive on-body pass sets. Kevin Dotson looks more willing to use the techniques that Meyer teaches. I just think he's not really it's not in his wheelhouse, where he's not comfortable in terms of being that aggressive and trying to slide laterally. He drops his head too much. And so, I've thought about Kevin Dotson some, and I know we're going to talk about it a ton more before cutdown date. What's his role? And obviously we'll see what the Herbig injury is with that shoulder, but I don't think Dotson's a good scheme fit. And we don't talk about scheme fit too much for offensive linemen, but just based on the demands of Myers' system, I just don't think. I think Dotson's a fish out of water. And so what do you do with that? I don't know, but I'm just going to make the declaration that Dotson is not the right man for this Pat Meyer-based scheme.
All right. And they played him at both guard spots. I thought they did and it's not shocking or not unexpected, but I thought they did a good job of shuffling the way they did shuffle through those 14 guys and move guys around. You saw Dotson at both guard spots in this game. You saw Herbig at both guard spots and center in this game. You saw McCollum, I think, at both guard spots, right? I know at least one guard spot, and obviously center in this game. We talked about Cook playing both tackle spots. We talked already about Anderson playing right guard, right tackle, and left guard. What other matriculations did they have in this one? Dunkel playing both guard spots in this game as well. So they really mixed and matched to give these guys opportunities to play the various positions. The only guy that didn't move around was really Kendrick Green, right?
Right.
Obviously Jones played, at left tackle specifically, and that was to be expected there. But we did not see any Kendrick Green at guard in this game. He was center only.
Which has been the story of camp. He's not taken one snap with anything other than second or third team center, besides fullback, this entire camp. And so he's been center only, and that may be another issue with him is the lack of versatility. According to our Tom Mead, and thanks to Tom for doing the offensive charting, McCollum played both guard spots and center, so he's playing all three in this game. And so, those interior guys moving around a bit more than the tackles.
All right, one final note on offense. I thought Rodney Williams represented himself well with what he was asked to do in that game, both on offense and I think on special teams as well, too.
Was there anything offensively in particular he did? Because I didn't see anything that stuck out to me.
I think he did a good job, especially coming across on that flare out pass to him, of kind of selling at least and kind of freezing that end there. Okay. Just a good job of, hey, I might block you, and then obviously releases out into the flat, made the catch and all like that. I thought he had. I think there's one other decent block kind of out in space there on one of them there. But I came away with just more of a plus sign on, not a, oh my God, what a great preseason game, but just, the air. And look, Rodney Williams doesn't have a great shot at making this 53-man roster, but, he was on the practice squad last year. So, I think he's in position after one preseason game to at least make a return trip to the practice squad.
And I should correct myself. I believe I said once or twice on the podcast he was from Middle Tennessee State. He was from UT Martin. So I'm sure there was a lot of hate mail coming in for that, but I do want to correct that. What are your thoughts on the wide receivers in this game? Calvin Austin, obviously game breaker, 67-yard touchdown, 17-yard jet run, drew the pass interference. I mean, this guy's got big play after big play created for this offense in this game. Obviously, we can talk about him. Any other thoughts with the other receivers as well?
Hey, you just look at that first jet sweep alone. We talked about this, I think, last night or the night or the last podcast there. Man, you get that kind of explosiveness and you run it early in the game with that jet sweep and hit it. It's going to, I think it's going to pay dividends. I mean, the speed is evident, especially on the press box all-22 view of that. That guy can get to the edge, not only get to the edge in a hurry, he can turn it up quickly as well too. And how many times have we talked about, man, they need that explosive play element from him. And back at college, nearly once every 4 touches. I mean, obviously it's college, yada yada, Memphis and the conference. But if you can even get once every 6 times he touches the football, an explosive play, I think that should be the expectations for him. Obviously the rest of the story, Deontay Johnson was Deontay Johnson. I don't think he gets enough praise coming out of that one drive for what he did there. Cody White, I know, and we talked about this. It wasn't the best ball overall by Mitch Trubisky down that right side. Like to see that's how you make NFL teams to come away with a catch on that. I'm trying to think of who else wide receiver wise really stuck out in that game, and I'm struggling when I get into the depth of who really stuck out.
Yeah, by that point, Tanner Morgan had come in the passing game, and the offense kind of went into a shell. So it's probably hard to evaluate that group. But yeah, I would just say with Calvin Austin, hopefully that dosage of explosive plays. And you can't expect it every single time he touches the football or every single game, but a healthy mix is going to, I think, add a lot of elements and layers to this offense.
All right, you charted defense. I've watched quite a bit of the All-22 on that. What stuck out on defense?
I mean, I tied that video on the inside linebackers and they're just physical, downhill, aggressive play, which I think has been missing for many years in Pittsburgh, whether it's a Landon Roberts, who curiously only got 2 snaps, but even showed that early in the game, and Quan Alexander with that downhill mentality. I thought Cole Holcomb was assignment sound. I thought he struggled some from just, being able to finish plays and some missed tackles. There was one in the hole that should have been
early.
No gain that he, the back stepped out of, but I thought he was in the right place and just showed the right mentality, but he was probably, a poor performance from a finishing standpoint. But just the overall demeanor, Mark Robinson making open field tackles and making stops, had a great tackle late in the second half of that game. So just the overall demeanor and physicality of that group has been a breath of fresh air.
What about up front?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think, Benton was fantastic. The hand use, the energy, the athleticism, hard to reach and cut that guy off. I mean, the clip that you had of him not getting reached, forcing the cutback, and then changing directions and making the tackle. I mean, just a one-man show on that play to not get reached in and of itself is important, and that forces the cutback, and then to defend the cutback and make the tackle. I mean, you just don't see that from a lot of these rookies to make that play. So I thought Benton, pass rush, club swim, just overall foot speed, cornering, really good game by him, and it really appears that ankle injury is minor, so that's good news there.
Montravius, I thought he started off the game with a couple of good snaps, but then it did seem to kind of tail a little bit to me there. I thought Leal represented himself fairly well overall with his hand in the dirt. We already talked about Loudermilk specifically against the run. When it came to like Watts and Fehoko, nothing really hugely stuck out about either of those two, I don't think.
Yeah, I thought the reps were fine, inoffensive overall. I have to go back and maybe hone in on those guys in particular. But yeah, I thought Leal was better against the run. His hand usage, still pass rusher, as I mentioned earlier. I think he's still trying to figure out his plan and how he wins as a pass rusher, but just hopefully with time, the traits will match the production.
Anything else about the guys up front?
Well, we go to the edge guys, obviously Herbig. And as I said,
right,
for a guy that didn't practice the last couple of days leading up to that game to get in the game, I didn't think he was going to play. And so for him to play and then play as well as he did on the edge, smart pass rusher, good hand use. I love that clip, and I love Brian Baldinger because he finds these things he finds them first, and then he finds these little Easter eggs. That play, I forget when it was, but he's on all fours, he's on the ground basically, and gets back up and helps in on the tackle. I mean, that's just that stuff you can't teach of never give up and stay in the fight and run to the football. And I just love those little things with Nick Herbig.
You definitely knew when he was in the game, and I think we said that in the Saturday podcast there. I mean, 13 snaps, and you knew when he was in the game.
Yeah, he's a hair on fire kind of dude. He's a good athlete, and he's smart. I mean, that sack, the full sack that he had, as you said, the back's chipping, the tackle set wide, the guard's down on the tackle, rush inside, and so the outside move initially, get the tackle to stay wide and open the gate, and then swim over and finish. Just a great rush all around.
I think the big thing to watch with him moving forward, obviously, and we've talked about this several times, is play against the run. And then, I mean, he's obviously working on his pass rush moves, and he's got great teachers there with Watt and Highsmith and all like that. Can he develop a power aspect to his pass rush plan?
Yeah, and he's not going to be a big guy, so it's not going to be innate strength. And so I think the timing of it's going to have to be, feet and hands working together, good punch, good placement, and good, timing of when to use that move, when to set it up. So he'll have to be somebody that it won't come naturally. but he'll have to really work at it. But it could be an asset.
I mean, look, he's early on in this thing, he's showing that he does deserve to be out on the edge so far.
Yeah, and I was skeptical of it, obviously, and I think
was too.
Early signs are that was incorrect skepticism, and that's why Pittsburgh wants to allow guys to do what they did in college, what they have done for the last 4 years, and if it doesn't work, then move him. But let's try the thing he was actually what we drafted him with the vision of before we start trying to change his position.
I mean, he's none of the rest of camp or preseason he's going to be moved off the ball or anything like that. I mean, it's his he is going to get every opportunity to prove he can be an outside linebacker in this system. Now, once we get into the regular season, how much will we see him? I mean, I think he's done at least enough at this point that you could potentially carve out, some passing down, instances where, all he has to do is worry about going after the quarterback, getting after the quarterback. I mean, I think he, especially with that speed, because he is a first step, win around the edge, kind of guy. So I think he's done enough to at least warrant those kind of snaps. Now, if Golden stays healthy and those other two, Highsmith and Watt, stay healthy, it is going to be hard for him to get on the field on the defensive side of football, I think.
Sure, but good problem to have that kind of depth they did not have last year. And inevitably someone's going to get dinged up, miss a half, miss a game, whatever the case is. And you have some, trusty depth there with Golden, who I thought Golden as a pass rusher, probably less to note, but as a run defender, chasing the ball backside, shooting gaps, disrupting pullers. I thought against the run, Golden was pretty strong.
And this second preseason game, I obviously don't know what the plan is. Even if you and Highsmith obviously played a little bit against the Buck. I mean, if you blink, you missed him there. He was how many snaps did he play in total there?
Probably that first drive, whatever it was, I'm guessing.
Highsmith, where is his snaps at here? Yeah, 3 snaps in the game. Levi Wallace just 3 snaps. Landon Roberts 2 snaps in that game. What I'm getting at here is I don't know what the plan is obviously going to be for the second preseason game. At some point you're going to want to get your starters out there, I think. But if the plan is, and let's say it's just the second preseason game, to lather up Watt and Highsmith for, I don't know, 8-9 plays in total, something like that. Hopefully the Bills' game plan is to maybe leave their starters in for a couple series. I'd like to see Herbig out there with Golden get some reps against some stronger competition.
Yeah, I don't know what the Bills' plan is for this one. I assume Pittsburgh will play their starters more significantly, and the guys with the concussed birth certificates will play in this game, and Hayward and Watt, and Peterson, Minka, etc. But I'm not entirely sure how that's going to go. But yeah, the more snaps you can get from Herbig, the more that you can evaluate, the better.
Why do you think they got him in? If they kind of knew he was going to play, talk about Herbig in this game, why wasn't he in? Why wasn't he in the second rotation?
It's a fair question. Yeah, we saw David Perales come in ahead of him initially. I guess it was probably just because he was lacking some of the reps, and Perales has been available and working every day. And I think Pittsburgh's general philosophy for these rookies, young guys are, if you're not getting the reps, then either you're not going to play or you're going to come in behind. So I'm guessing it was just because Herbig had missed
procedural.
Yeah, just standard. This is how we do things. Yeah. Why do you think, and I mentioned this, why did Roberts only play 2 snaps? He played the first 2 in base. And when I initially watched the game, I thought, okay, maybe they were only playing, Roberts only played in base and Alexander was going to play nickel, but Alexander played in base later in the game. I mean, Alexander got a ton of snaps in this game. I know that he's almost brand new to Pittsburgh, but Roberts is still a first-year player in Pittsburgh. Why only 2 snaps for Landon Roberts? Yeah,
and he didn't even play any special team snaps in this game to boot. And Holcomb played 25 snaps. Right. And Alexander played 23.
Yeah. So why a deuce for Landon Roberts?
I don't know.
I mean, he wasn't hurt. I mean, it was weird. Like, he was even part of the post-game press conference, and it was like, what do you ask Landon Roberts if you played 2 snaps? I don't have anything to ask you. So, I mean, I don't know what to make of that. I think there's going to be rotation with all those guys, Holcomb, Robertson, and Alexander, but that was a curiosity to see the 2 for Landon Roberts.
All right, the corners in this game. We already talked a bit about James Pierre, so we won't double back on that. Man, if Barku comes down early and makes that because he got shot out of a cannon on that pass over to the right side there. If he submarines and makes that tackle, he's probably getting more run after this game. But he didn't make the tackle. Yeah.
Right. And it's especially frustrating because they literally drilled that. You know, that Oklahoma drill they had run last week, that 1v1 where Porter missed those couple of tackles. That's literally the drill, because on that rep, what they do is they have these cones set up. They'll throw a swing screen pass to the receiver. The cornerback has to backpedal for 2-3 steps and then break on the football. That is the drill. And so this was the play. Screen, Barku and his pedal, get downhill, drive, make the tackle. And he read it well, did everything until the very end, and just missed the tackle. He lacks, he's never been a great tackler in college at San Diego State. He's been more of that, again, former wide receiver, turn corner, better ball skills than tackler. But yeah, he's got to make that play there.
All right. What else stood out with the corners in this game? Elijah Riley, good game.
Yeah, I was frustrated because Tampa Bay's offense just ran so much play action and crossers and boots, and it was kind of hard to evaluate these guys. It was just so much, you're trailing, you're out leveraged, they're running their 74th crosser off, play action. Okay, we get it. Kind of hard to evaluate the DBs a bit. Trenton Thompson, probably over aggressive as a tackler, but had that pick. That was a great read. They rotate coverage post snap. Trask, young quarterback, doesn't recognize it, basically throws it at him, and Thompson steps in front and picks the ball off. He's got some ball skills. At corner, Harper using his size. He had a couple breakups late in this game. He's super long guy. He's like Joey Porter Jr., maybe not as rocked up and muscly, but height, weight, length standpoint, they're very similar. Other than that, I didn't get a lot of impressions from the cornerback room.
Yeah, me either. And I think the highlight obviously was the Trenton Thompson interception. I was hoping to see Robinson make more of a appearance in this thing.
Yeah. I think the scheme was just kind of tough for these DBs to really do much of anything other than just go tackle some guys. So anything else? Any other thoughts? Special teams? I'm kind of going through it still. I thought Hakeem Butler did all right. I think it was actually Rodney Williams who got credit for the forced fumble, not Quincy Roche, as I said on a previous podcast. So good call by you. Jordan Byrd, not a ton of chances for him. This was kind of the backup special teamers getting the first game with Byrd and Killebrew not working as the up back, and of course the kickers and punters, the backups working this one. So it's kind of the backup game for the specialists.
Let's see. As far as special teams burn went in this game, Perales had 15 snaps. Roche had 13. In Dukwe had 15. Kenny Robinson had 12. Muse had 14. Thompson had 15. We talked ahead of the game. He was going to get probably a lot of burn on defense and special teams. He played 25 defensive snaps and 15 on special teams. I'm trying to see if anybody else kind of stuck out here. Duke Dawson played 10 snaps there. Kwiatkowski probably would have played a little bit more on special teams had he not dinged that shoulder. He had 8 snaps in total there. So that's a little bit about some of the special teams burn here.
Okay, I might do a film room on that later this week. We'll have to wait and see. So overall, good first outing. I thought the rookies represented themselves well in this one. The offense looked good early, defensively. Some notable things there. I'm pretty happy with how this game went.
Yeah, I was as well too. I think there's enough good play by draft picks specifically to get excited about. And that's kind of what you want to do in this first preseason game is get a good look at the younger guys on the roster and especially the young draft picks and all. And, hopefully Joey Porter Jr. will be healthy enough to play in this second game, get a little bit longer, get a long look at him.
All right, Dave, we're about an hour into this thing. Let's get through some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, let's see what we have in the email machine here. Austin Hackett says running back number 3. He says, hey, guy, he's the one that asked about Trey Sermon the other day. He says, I was unable to find any special team snaps for Trey Sermon outside that he did return 3 kicks for the Eagles week 1, including a long return of 30 yards. As you guys discuss, it'll be interesting to see what the team decides to do with Anthony McFarland if he's not playing special teams himself. So probably safe to assume the same would apply for any outside running backs added. Just want to say great work as always at training camp. Shout out to Alex for the incredible recaps every day. I've been reading his training camp diaries for about 10 years because it's just the best coverage you can get. Feels like I'm sitting right next to him. P.S. Let's see. He wants me to unblock him on Twitter, evidently. All right, so we'll look into that. Thanks for the email, Austin.
Thank you, Austin.
Xavier Robinson. Over the season, you guys compared the Steelers to the Titans. Over the offseason, you guys compared the Steelers to the Titans and have debated if that style can win in today's NFL. I think they're following the 49ers and Eagles blueprint, not the Titans. I think that's smart because you're not going to beat the Chiefs, Bengals, and Bills at their own game. Controlling the line of scrimmage will be the identity of the team, but they can be much more than that. It's only a few weeks into training camp and 1 preseason game, but do you feel the Steelers can be closer to the 49ers and Eagles than the old Titans teams that made the playoffs and got eliminated? Look, I mean, it's only 1 preseason game, but still make no mistake about it. They're going to have to run the football, to loosen things up, and that jet sweep game and that elongated running game with the prepare to be aggravated if you just don't like specific play calls, regardless of what the outcome is, because they are going to have to elongate defensive fronts, I think, with use of the jets and the screen games to help, make that power running game even that more effective. And I think you're going to see a lot of 2 tight end personnel groupings, especially early on in the season too. I'm not going to, off of 1 preseason game, I'm not going to sit here and say that they're closer to the 49ers and Eagles blueprint more so than the Titans. I mean, we'll see. But even the Titans had the ability to off of that, because the running game was so good, to push the football down the field. They weren't very good when they tried to push the football. They didn't have, who's that young receiver that, they just overall, they weren't overly explosive, I don't think, down the field.
I want to be clear. What I've said it many times, is the Steelers want to be the 49ers. My Titans comment was they want to be the 49ers. Will they become the Titans? And missed that mark because the offense just isn't quite as crisp and talented, and the play calling does not match what Kyle Shanahan is able to do. So that's the context. Is I agree they want to be the 49ers. Will they get there? We'll have to wait and see. Does my opinion change off of 1 game? No, I'm not going to make any sort of definitive conclusions or any sort of super big change of hearts based off of 1 game. Knowing Tampa Bay didn't really play a lot of their guys either, but hopefully it can be. I mean, if they can be the 49ers, then fantastic. That's the goal, and hopefully they are and don't become the Titans instead.
Look, I hammered young Shanahan early on in his coordinator career. All right, but he has progressed, in my opinion, obviously, as an offensive coordinator of better stuff, especially when it comes to making things look the same and running variations off of it. I think he's done a better job too of post snap kind of development there. I think it's I think it's a lot asking Matt Canada to become the next Kyle Shanahan, though.
It's funny though, because I'm pretty sure that Shanahan learned a lot from Canada in his early days. I think Canada was kind of the teacher, was the whole student surpassing master kind of thing. I forget the whole story, but Canada's offense is going to have to be more layered and more varied and be more reminiscent of what the 49ers do for this offense to really, reach its ceiling.
But we'll obviously break it down as it goes here, especially early in the season. I think these first 6 games are really, really critical for this team, not only in us getting a good look of what Kenny Pickett is or is not, but those feel like there's some winnable games in this thing. And obviously you got the Browns in there. I mean, to me, it feels like there are some winnable games if you don't turn the football over.
Oh yeah. I mean, this team can win. I mean, you can reasonably map out a way for this team to win double-digit games, at least go, win 10 games this year, go 10-7. That really, frankly, should probably become the expectation for this team.
Zach Myers has a interesting question in here. I have a hypothetical question here for you. He says, if Zach Gentry does end up being the odd man out in the tight end room, what do you think his trade value would be, or would they simply just cut him? Here's the thing. Zach was a 5th round draft pick. He's, has he lived up to 5th round draft picks so far?
For so many that just do nothing, never even make your team, I would say you've gotten at least a decent ROI on him.
Okay. Well, he's not going to garner, in my opinion, on the 1 year cut, even though it's a cheaper contract for him and it's a 1 year deal. A 5th round pick feels rich for him. So anything beyond that, like a 6th or 7th round pick, I could see that happening. But that is indeed, because if you did cut him at this point, and I still think there's some. I'm still not ready yet to write Zach Gentry's name down in pen. Are you? Or are you?
No, I wouldn't go so far to say it's in pen, but when I make my next 53-man roster prediction, Zach Gentry will be on there, and I
think
imagine
he'll be on
yours.
too. Yeah. But it will be interesting to see what you can get done with Washington from here on out. And, obviously, Connor Havens is another one that had a good game the other night too. For the time that he was in. That was kind of to be expected with him. We kind of take him. I guess we've reached already. We kind of take him for granted for what he can do at this point.
Sure. Now, I will say, I don't think Gentry has any trade value. I think the big blocking tight end, half these teams are using a 6 offensive lineman.
You can get a 7th round draft pick for him. Sure you can.
No, because
I'm not the hugest of Zach, and I'm very careful when it comes to trade value. I think you can get a 7th for him.
He'd have to go to waivers, right? If he's cut downs, he's part of the waiver process on cut downs?
Yeah, I believe he would be part of the.
I think everybody is. I don't know how the vested works for that. Because my thought is, like, if Pittsburgh's calling you about Zach Gentry, that means they're about to cut him. So why not he's on a minimum contract? Why not just claim him or just sign him whenever he's cut instead of having to fork up even a conditional 7th round pick for the guy?
Yeah, but how many times have we seen so-and-so is going to release so-and-so later today, and then late in the day, so-and-so traded, because teams lower in the draft order say, well, we might get beat to the waiver claim here.
Yeah, but how many teams are putting in waiver claims on Zach Gentry? Usually it's a more high-profile offensive lineman, someone a bit more in demand.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Right. I think you can get, if indeed it came to that and he was an odd man out, assuming he stays healthy. I think you can get a 7th rounder for him.
Besides him and Kevin Dotson, what other potential trade pieces are there? Something along the D-line, maybe, because that D-line there's so much competition. You'd hate to cut one of those guys outright. Do you potentially look at, whoever it is, Fehoko or, Watts, or even a Loudermilk? Would that just to spitball ideas for potential trade options?
I'm not seeing enough value there. I really am not.
But you see it in Gentry, but not in.
Yeah, I see it in Gentry because because of what he is. He's a 2nd or 3rd tight end, and teams might get in a situation where they need that.
All right, is there any other trade piece that you think, theoretically, not to declare it that you think it will happen, but just something else that makes sense for them to deal away if they were to deal somebody at?
I don't know. Could Anthony McFarland be on somebody's radar if you end up not being able to find a spot for him as a number, if he was only going to be your number 3 and you can't get him on. Obviously the reason he would be out in Pittsburgh would be mainly because of his special teams value. So if he does all the rest that you need him to do as a 2A running back, could there be a team out there that values that? I think there's an opportunity potentially there.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think there might be a better scheme fit for him somewhere other than Pittsburgh, where it doesn't really mesh all that well. I mean, there's a ton of running backs out there, so trade value for running backs in general can be tougher. But yeah, I hear what you're saying there.
I think the line stops there, though, after him, as far as tradable guys. And Kevin Dotson really needs to get on his horse a little bit better, I think, show something here.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about that more later in the summer, but just wanted to pick your brain there real quick.
All right. I think that's it as far as the email machine goes. So anything else you'd like to add or preview coming up these next couple of days here?
Nope. Back out at camp Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we'll be back, Dave and I, tomorrow to recap the Tuesday practice. I imagine things might start ramping down a little bit here, probably be in shells for one of these, at least one of these next 3 practices, but we'll come back tomorrow and recap what happens and go from there.
All right. Sounds good. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar. Thank you so much for the support to the site, especially since, not only in general, but since training camp opened. And Alex, thank you to you. I mean, your camp reports have been really helped me. I feel I'm selfish. I like having them just for me, and the fact that everybody else gets to read them and listen to your analysis, I think is just a bonus on that. Because as I said on that wrap up podcast last night, man, I felt so prepared going into that game overall, where I wasn't hugely surprised by really anything that happened there. So shout out to Kozora there. In the meantime, let's see. Alex and I'll be back after the next practice on Tuesday, right? And in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.